Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the Westwood Leadership Gathering. Thanks for being here. My name is Kevin Klingbeil. I'm the pastor of Next Steps, and it is so good to be with you this morning. At Westwood, we define leadership as influence, and so I believe every single person in this room is a leader because each and every one of you has influence. You have influence in your family, you have influence in your job, you have influence in your neighborhood, and you have influence every single place that you go. Our hope for this morning is that you leave equipped, encouraged, and supported to own that influence wherever you are. Our hope is that you take away a page full of notes of things that you can apply to your leadership every single day. I do have to give a special welcome this morning because for the first time in Westwood's history, we are able to broadcast this gathering online. So welcome to everybody who's online with us. This wouldn't have been possible without an amazing team. And this team, you probably never notice, you probably never see them, but this is our production team. So I have to say thank you to Val Schoeneker, Chris White, Vicky Turner, Krista Peterson, Kim Munson, because without them, we wouldn't be able to reach the people that we're reaching. We're so grateful that we get to do that. One of the cool things that we have an opportunity to engage with this year is many people invited coworkers, neighbors, friends to this gathering. So if you're a guest with us, not a part of our Westwood community, we're glad that you're here. So grateful that you joined us. And we hope that as we gather together, you get a little taste of what Westwood is like. And hopefully you come back on a Sunday. We'd love to see you some other time. We have a great lineup this morning, and because of that, we're going to move really quickly. So buckle up, hang on. We're going to move through this thing really fast. On your table, there's pens, there's a notepad. So my prayer is that that notepad before you leave today is covered front and back with all kinds of notes. Hopefully there's enough for maybe 2 or 3. We pray that you're going to have a ton of fun and a lot to take care of. So as we move fast, here's my encouragement. If you need a coffee refill, go get a coffee refill. If you need a potty break, please take a potty break for the rest of us. We believe that this is going to be a great morning. God has a lot for us, and so it seems fitting that we start our morning in prayer. So will you join me in prayer? Gracious Heavenly Father, we praise you and thank you for your goodness and your grace. God, you are our leader. You are the one that we follow, and so God, we trust that today you're going to show up, that today you're going to teach us something about our influence, teach us something about how we can lead better, teach us something about ourselves so we can grow. God, we are grateful that we get to gather in this place and grow in our leadership today. God, we love you and we praise you. It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen. So I have the privilege of being your host, and I'm going to introduce all of our speakers. And so our very first speaker is Chris Wright. He's the CEO of MNUFC, and for those of you who don't know what that means, those are the Minnesota Loons. And previously he had a 26-year career with the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Minnesota Lynx, including 13 years as president. He and his wife Walla have 3 kids, and they've been at Westwood for some time. Not only is he an amazing leader who has an amazing impact, he's generous. This week is the start of their camp, their training camp. And not only is he here with us this week, but he spent time this week with our interns and residents. Chris Wright is an amazingly generous leader, but he's also got a soccer spirit, and he wanted you to feel that this morning. And so in order to get us fired up and ready to go, he has a little video for you to enjoy. Check the screen.
The stage is set.
We've made it home to the Midway.
There's something in the air.
Allianz Field.
To this cathedral of our beloved game that unites us all as one.
90 minutes of passion-invoking devotion and pride.
Heard through the voices of 20,000 strong. Our driving force, the foundation.
Here we are to take on the next chapter together. Come on, you loons.
Are you with me now? Said, are you with me now? Ain't felt this good in a while. They want us to simmer down. Can you hear me now? Am I going in and out? I stop and just look around to see if you're with me now. Tell me, are you with me now? Ready to put it down. Start at the bottom, already forgot them, but they won't forgive me now. You really ain't ready now. You haters just in the crowd. But till I just look around, are you with me now? Are you with me now? Are you with me now?
Oh, polarizing and scoring! Rodriguez scores in front of the Wonderwall!
Stop and just look around. Are you with me now? Are you with me now? Whoa. I feel it coming now. It's too late to shut it down. I'm waiting around now. Further the valley down.
Good morning, Westwood. Woo! Go Loons. Hands up if you've been to a game. Awesome. Okay. Hands up if we sang Wonderwall at that game. Oh. Okay, wait for the last video this morning. I want everybody to notice in the room, though, that the pastor's wife just walked in. 2 minutes late. In our world, that's a fine. And then just drawing on a number of different analogies, incredible to see the sellout this morning. 17 games last year at Allianz Field. We sold out every single game. 20,000 people. Soccer is growing in this marketplace. Many, many kids are playing the game. Basketball is growing. Soccer is growing. Other sports in every conference that we go to. Basically, you see the trends of where different sports are going. But soccer is growing massively, not only in this marketplace, but around the country. Kevin, when he got up this morning, talked about influence. He said that that's Westwood's definition of influence, and I would agree with that wholeheartedly. I think leadership is also about example. And I want to talk a little bit today, and I want to try to set the stage for the rest of your day today by giving you some high-level sort of maybe things to think about that might impact you as an individual, whether it be in the workplace, or whether it be in your faith journey, or whether it be in terms of your family. And I want to try to touch at a very, very high level. I'm not going to go too deep, but I'm going to leave that to Colleen and to John, who are going to follow and give you incredible insights this morning into their journey, what their beliefs are, what they really believe leadership is. But I want to try to influence you this morning to think about a number of different things that in the end, I believe can help you. And I really believe that on the inside of organizations today, on the inside of individuals today, that it's very, very important that we understand that what we do and what we say and how we act, example, is really truly what leadership in the end is all about. Because then if we are great examples of truly what leadership is, and whatever your definition becomes after today's sessions, then you can influence massive communities, you can influence your own faith journey, you can influence many, many people around you, and you can also be a great influencer and leader inside of your family. So my journey, and life is a journey, isn't it? We're all on that journey, and we've all got stories to tell, and Chris Wright will tell you one or two stories about him personally today, but every single one of you could come up to this podium today, and you could tell us stories about your own life journey. And maybe that's a great takeaway already. What is your narrative? What is your narrative around leadership? What is your narrative around your life journey? Whether that be in the professional workplace, or whether that be your faith journey, or whether that be inside of your family. My journey Started in England. I'm an English guy with a beautiful English accent that everybody sort of completely and utterly buys into and understands. It gets me everywhere, according to my wife. My journey started as a young man in England, and I'm going to talk a little bit later on about family and family influence and people who have impacted my life. But I started as a soccer player. I got injured, went into coaching, and then basically got offered a position by Edward J. DeBartolo on the San Francisco 49ers and the Pittsburgh Penguins. He bought a soccer team, and he said, this English guy is the guy who is going to lead my franchise. And so I came to the United States. I came to Pittsburgh. I worked for this incredible owner of an NFL franchise, of an NHL franchise, and I learned so much from this person in how to lead an organization and build an organization. And ultimately, I came here to the Minnesota Strikers and then ultimately to the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Minnesota Lynx and had a almost 27-year career with Glenn Taylor and the Timberwolves and built the Lynx to that 4-time championship team that they became. But I came to a crossroads. I'm winding down as the president of the Minnesota Timberwolves, and a group of owners came together who are iconic in this marketplace. It's the Pollards of the world, it's the Taylors of the world, it's the Methunes of the world, it's the Mortensons of the world. And they decided that soccer was the next sport that really needed to take its place inside of this market. We went out and we bid for the franchise, and we bid against the Wilfs. And the Wilfs wanted the franchise similarly to the group that we had put together. And we went to New York and we bid for the expansion rights of an MLS franchise inside of this market. And the difference between our bids was that the Wilfs said NFL ownership, US Bank Stadium. We said no, the game above all. The game above all. We will build a stadium where our game is played on grass, not on AstroTurf, and we will create an atmosphere for this game that is second to none. Incredible insight and incredible leadership from people like Bill McGuire, Glenn Taylor, Bob Pollard, the Mortensen family, to really understand that that was a differentiator. That was the way that the game could take its rightful place in this market. But when they launched, the ownership didn't really feel that it had taken its place in this market. It wasn't everything that it could be in this marketplace. So on October the 6th of 2017, before the first season in TCF Bank Stadium ended, they asked me to become the CEO and make sure that when we went to Allianz Field, that the game, above all, would take its rightful place in this community as we launched this stadium. There's the ownership group. There's the executive committee. There's my personal and my professional board of directors. People who influence me every single day. Leaders in our community. And one of the first things that I would ask you to write down in front of you today is, who is your professional and your personal board of directors? Do you have one? Can you go to them for any problem that you might have? Who are the influencers in your life's journey, whether it is professional, whether it is family, whether it is faith? Who are your personal board of directors that you can go to ask that advice, that sage advice that keeps you on the straight and narrow with your beliefs and your example inside of those 3 different channels of your life? And so one of the things that I realized very, very quickly about Minnesota United was the way that they had launched, and the reason that in the end I really believed that they had not taken their place in the market, that the game wasn't the game above all, that we weren't sort of getting our fair share of voice in this market, was simply that we were selling soccer. We were selling the MLS. We were selling Minnesota United. But at its root, there were no core values to this franchise. There was no why to this franchise. And I'm a huge business reader. We'll get to the family side in a second and the faith side in a second, and obviously a lot of this is also biblical. But go read Simon Sinek when he says start with why. Go read Lencioni, who says build trust. It all starts with trust. Go read Gladwell, who talks about outliers and the theory of 10,000 hours. Are you going to be the very, very best at what you can be? Are you going to put 10,000 hours in to be the very, very best that you can be? And then go to Whitman, Gino Whitman. Declare your vision, and you will get traction in your life, in your business, in everything that you're doing. So now, having read 4 books in a hurry, what do we need at Minnesota United to do all of that? So let's go back to Sinek, who says start with why. Okay, what is your why personally? What is our club's why? And we put 72 people in the room in the Brave New Workshop in downtown Minneapolis with a comedic character called John Sweeney, who runs the Brave New Workshop, and we said we are not leaving this 2-day retreat without really truly understanding the purpose of Minnesota United. What is the purpose of our professional franchise? What is the differentiator? What should we be all about? So in our professional journey, what should we be all about as a club? And amazingly, I came to a service at Westwood, and my pastor one morning says, guess how many languages and how many dialects are spoken in the Twin Cities marketplace? Somebody shout out a number. Were you there at that service that morning? Okay. How many languages, dialects are spoken in the Twin Cities marketplace? 150. Any advance on 150? 251 is the answer. 251 languages and dialects are spoken in the Twin Cities marketplace, and according to Pastor Joel and Sammy, 78 on each street alone. So if you go down to Minneapolis in that 3-block area, 78 languages spoken. So if you think about it in our world, in our sport, if you're first, second, third generation people, you've come from a nation somewhere else in the world. They play the game. They play the beautiful game. They play soccer. So what does that mean to our franchise? They've decided that the Twin Cities is their home. To promote soccer, the world's game, the beautiful game. And we're going to inspire and unite our community of 251 languages. And we're going to bring them together at Allianz Field in this incredible atmosphere of 20,000 people per game. Nations from all over the world represented, supporting the game that they all know and love. They might have a favorite team somewhere else, but can Minnesota United become their team in this marketplace? And also, as we do that, then we've got to look at what backs all of that up. So from a leadership standpoint, what is it that is actually at the backbone of our team? We've got to be resilient. We're in the 15th largest marketplace in the country with every professional sports team here, and how are we going to wade through all of that clutter? We've got to be resilient. We've got to be inclusive. We are going to respect and love everybody. We're going to bring people from many, many nations to our game, and we're going to build an environment where they are comfortable and they know that they are loved and liked as we build an affinity with them to support our team. That's reflected in our food story. So if you go to every portable inside of our stadium, it is all ethnic food. When they walk into the stadium, there it is, their comfort food. They can go and get it. Our staffing is all about diversity and inclusion. We have over 25 nations on our part-time staff. If you're Somalian, you can find somebody who speaks your language inside of our stadium. If you're a Hmong, you can find somebody who speaks your language inside of our stadium, and on and on and on. Our core values must reflect our why. Cynic says start with why. Now, as a leader, I have got to be the example of these core values every single day. On a consistent basis, this must happen in every area of our club for us to be believable and to influence all of our fandom, everybody who follows our team. And so one of the things that we do inside of the stadium, and if you walk into our premium stack, walking the walk, talking the talk, being the example that we need to be, we have murals all the way up our premium stack wall of all of our fans who come from all of those nations reflected on a wall inside of our stadium. They know what they're walking into. They believe in our core purpose. They believe in what we are doing for them and making Minnesota United their home. So on the professional side, what is your why? What are your core values? How do you live them out every single day? And then what about you as an individual? What is your personal why? And I struggle with this, and I try to find time where I can sit alone and get my notepad out and, write notes to myself around who and what I am to my family, in my faith, and in my own professional journey. And over the years, it has evolved into something that I believe is very, very simple, but very, very meaningful inside of my life. And so my personal why has matured. It's a journey, as we have talked about. But my personal why is to live my life and honor every single day my faith, my family, and my franchise. My franchise is my professional career, and we've talked a little bit about that. Born in Yorkshire lad who lives in a small town called Filey, and this is Filey Bay. And for those of you that read Condé Nast, Filey Beach, 5 miles of it, has just been voted the number 7 beach in the world. And it's this incredible little secret that really nobody knows too much about whatsoever. Originally about 2,000 people. There, it's a little bit bigger than that now. It's become a little bit of a seaside resort in England. That's what we call it. It's where people go for vacation. But this is where I was born. And when you think about my journey and the people who have influenced me and my personal board of directors, then this little guy from Filey, NBA president, CEO of Minnesota United, that's one heck of a journey. What is your journey? Where did you start? Where are you on that journey today? Who is helping you on that journey? Who is the influencer? Who are the leaders in your world who are helping you get to where you need to be, want to be? What is your vision for where you want to go? And this was my first chairman of the board. So in my own journey, my own personal board of directors, my grandfather was the person who was my first chairman of the board. He used to pick me up for Sunday school on a Sunday morning, walk me down to Ebenezer Methodist Church, and after we had sort of gone to church, he would take me to that thing sticking out there, that's Filey Brig. It's a massive outcrop of rocks. And he would sit me down on top of Filey Brig, and that was where he basically gave me all of his insights around how to get out of Filey, how to lead, where you should take your life. And even in the book of Jeremiah, which he used to quote all of the time, he used to say to me when I was sat on top of Filey Brig as a 10, 11, 12, 15-year-old, only he knows the path. Only He knows the journey that you are on. And so when I think about Filey today and living in Minnesota and the job that I have had, this guy obviously had insights into a journey that I was about to take part in that I never, ever could envisage on my own. Get out of Filey. Don't be a fisherman. Go make something of yourself. Don't be what all of your friends are doing, still fishing back in that small town. This was my chairman of the board. I came to the United States. I married a beautiful woman who's an incredible Christian woman who is disappointed she can't be here this morning. She's got other things going on in a very, very busy life. And she is now certainly, if she's not the chairman of the board of directors, she's the biggest influencer of the board. In more ways than one, trust me. And we have had incredible blessings with children that we adore and we love. But as we go through our own journey in our own life, and as we build our own leadership skills, and we try to create our own personal core values around who and what we need to be, and the example that we want to show people, then obviously our faith journey together is an incredibly important piece of that. And the emphasis of the faith journey that we have, whether it be through attendance, whether it be through prayer, whether it be through all of the things that support our faith journey, we try to do that together. And one of the incredible examples that I would give you today around leadership is simply this. Our family, in some way, shape, or form, has had some traumatic times around illness. Every single one of these kids, in some way, shape, or form, has gone through something very, very difficult in their lives. The guy up on the right-hand side with the beard standing up was involved in a really nasty accident that needed 37 stitches in his skull. And I honestly believe that when that happened, he was in a stadium. A doctor was maybe about 10 yards away from him, and he came down and he basically held his skull together until the paramedics arrived and basically saved Ned's life. Christy, the one in the middle, has just had her third open heart surgery and has just had a new pulmonic valve put inside of her heart. Walla, going back to my wife, 11 years ago had a brain tumor and she needed surgery at the Mayo. In the book of James, it tells you that you can go out and you can ask the elders of your church to pray. And you can ask for hands to be placed on people who are sick. We did that with Pastor Joel in my home in Eden Prairie when Walla was going to go through surgery. The leadership that was shown, the sympathy that was shown, the support that was shown, the prayer support that was shown, the example that was shown in all of those very, very difficult circumstances of life were absolutely amazing. What examples do you have of that in your personal life? What is your story around difficult situations where you've had to lean into people and people have been great examples of support, sympathy, help? What are you doing for other people? What boards of directors are you on for other people where you are showing those character traits that they need when they are going through a difficult life circumstance? Chrissy was probably the best soccer player in the family. Her heart condition prevented her from playing at the top levels, but when she was 15, and she had this incredible coach in Eden Prairie, it was her dad. We played at the premier level for 6 years, and such a talented player. She was a right back, and we decided to go to Europe on a soccer tour. And I put 2 games together in Holland and 5 games together in England, and the highlight was Manchester United girls. Oh, look, I love it. Thank you, you soccer fans, you. And who's your favorite team? Is it Barcelona, Real Madrid, Manchester United, Liverpool are cleaning everybody's clocks right now in England. But we went to Manchester United. We actually did play Liverpool girls as well. But we went to Manchester United and we lost 4-2. So we did get our backsides handed to us. But we then went to the stadium and we did a tour of the stadium. And the tour guide was this incredible young man called John, 20 years of age, and he took these 15-year-old girls around the stadium, and he told stories at every single location around the stadium. And he held these 15-year-olds captive. They were right there. They were hanging on every word because he was English and he had a Manchester accent. And it was just truly amazing. And it was incredible. I went over to him at the end, and during the tour, we went into the locker room, and obviously he says, this is where David Beckham used to get changed. And then we went into the family room. This is where Victoria Principal, Posh Spice, used to put her Louis Vuitton bag. And these girls were just, oh, this is amazing. So, all tours, including Allianz Field, when you tour Allianz Field, always end up in the team store because we want you to buy our merchandise. And so at the end of this, when they're in the team store, I go over to John and I said, this is, what an incredible moment for these young women. You're just incredible. The storytelling was just absolutely amazing. Tell me a little bit about yourself. And John said, hey, Mr. Wright, he said, in England, you can leave school when you're 15. You don't have to graduate high school. I came to work for Manchester United and I worked on the turnstiles at Minnesota United, tearing tickets. And he said, I was promoted after a year and a half, and I became a member of the cleaning squad. So I clean the stadium after the game. I clean all of the premium areas so that we're ready for our next event. And he said, then I got my dream job. He said, then I was promoted to tour guide of Manchester United. And I said, John, what an amazing journey. You obviously love your club. He said, Mr. Wright, he said, I pull on the Manchester United jersey every single day. So as you lead, do you pull on your jersey every single day? Do you pull on your professional jersey every single day? Do you pull on your family jersey every single day? Do you pull on your faith jersey every single day? And when you're living your life to the fullest, and when you know you've got it going on, because your why and your purpose is intact, professionally, faith-wise, family-wise, when the core values at the root of your life are so intact and so in place, you can be the great example to many, many people. And when you're celebrating, often what comes out of that are incredible traditions. We have this incredible tradition of going back to Filey every year with our family. Our kids love Filey. That board of directors chairman was called Ned. N-E-D. My middle son is called Ned. My daughter is getting married in London in October, and she's getting married at a hotel called The Ned. Traditions follow on. Traditions are really important, and it's important that we celebrate. And if I go back to my professional career at the moment in Minnesota United, we have some traditions. And the way we celebrate our why, our core values, 20,000 people in our stadium, and when we win a game, we have an incredible tradition that I would love you to play right now. Tech support. When is your review? Maybe you don't have a job tomorrow. Just kidding.
So now Bill Hamid will take the free kick. There it is! The first victory for Minnesota United at Allianz Field. Warm up the vocal cords. Hugh Wonderwall for the very first time at Allianz Field.
Westwood, thank you. Go Loons. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Chris. I have to make one comment. He called soccer the beautiful game. It is, but I personally think two men slamming their head together is quite beautiful as well. I grew up playing football, so I have found that soccer is a beautiful game, and so is football. But we are so grateful for your wisdom. What I love about your talk is you said, walk the walk and talk the talk. And essentially what I'm going to take away is I need to find somebody that's walking the walk and talking the talk that I want, and do that, and begin to follow that example, and then do that for somebody else. Find somebody that I can speak into, that I can encourage, that I can help equip. So grateful for your words. Really appreciate your leadership. We're going to keep it moving. Our next guest is Colleen Steward. Colleen is the president and the CEO of Tremendous Entertainment. Her and her husband Tom have been married for 35 years, and they have 3 children. She's been a part of some of the most successful television shows out there, and there is nothing like, I have to say, I've been spending a lot of time on my couch binge watching a guy eat really weird foods from around the world, and there's nothing quite like it. I've really, really enjoyed it. I'm extremely excited to learn from Colleen this morning. We're honored to have her. Will you join me in welcoming Colleen Steward?
Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. It's great to be here, and thank you all for braving the cold. A little chillier than I expected this morning, but it's so wonderful to be here. And thank you, Westwood, for providing this opportunity for all of us. Chris, that was so inspiring. Thank you. What I would like to talk about today is how to cultivate creativity. Now, obviously, I work in a television production company, so it would make sense that creativity would be important to that kind of business. But what I'm going to talk about today is really how vitally important I think creativity is in anything that we do. But first, just a word on leadership. Chris was talking about that, and I really believe that we're all leaders in one way or another, and we have a lot of opportunity to influence both the organization we run and the people who make up our organization. And today I'm going to talk about the people who make up Tremendous Entertainment, because they are by far my biggest blessing in that organization and the reason that we are as successful as we are. I really believe that whether you run a family, a small business, some sort of a large corporation, maybe a church, maybe the government, I think that as a leader, you have a choice. You can either wreak havoc, sow fear, and division within your organization, or you could choose to inspire. You can bring people together. You can work toward a common mission and create something and accomplish great things. And it's really your choice. There is nothing accidental about it. And I think, as Chris pointed out, you lead by example. So 25 years ago, I was anchoring news. I decided to start a company, called it Tremendous Entertainment, and it is a TV and video production company, and these are just some of the examples of the shows that we've created. Up in the corner, that's Andrew Zimmern, the guy who eats bizarre foods around the world. Right next to it, you might recognize Maureen McCormick from the Brady Bunch. She hosted a show we do every year called Macy's Thanksgiving Day Cake Spectacular. It's a competition series. And then over in the lower corner, those two guys are standing in front of Denali. We do a show called Rock the Park, and it's in our sixth season on ABC. And the guy in the green jacket is my son. And my other son, who's sitting over here, also works on Rock the Park. And I'm happy to say it was the first time we won an Emmy was with this show. So, yeah. We also work with a family called the Peets, Holly Robinson Peet, who is an actress and a philanthropist, and her husband Rodney, who is an NFL quarterback. And we do, we've spent 4 years with their family documenting how they raise their family and the things that they do for their community. And that was on Hallmark. And then next to it, we did a Christmas special, Christmas cookie matchup with Hallmark Channel. And it featured some of the stars on the show who partnered with amateur bakers from around the country. So we specialize in food and travel. We do a lot of history, wildlife programming, science, medical, a lot of lifestyle, home renovation, and you know, I could go on, but basically we do everything but sports. Sorry, Chris. We get into almost every genre. How we do it is we dream up all of our own ideas. So we dream up an idea for a program, we develop it out, what it's going to look like, what it's going to cover. We go to a network or a streaming service like Netflix or Disney Plus. Or we go to a brand. We do a lot of work with brands as well. And we pitch our idea. And hopefully, someone buys it. And once they do commit to buying it, that's when we get started producing it. And that means we employ producers, writers, researchers, camera operators, editors, graphic designers, sound engineers, the list goes on. And we start creating those programs. So when you think about what we do, it seems very obvious that, of course, creativity plays into that. And before I kind of get into how we nurture that in our company, I wanted to talk a little bit about why creativity is essential to any organization. The World Economic Forum ranks creativity third behind critical thinking and problem solving as a key to any successful organization. Now, I believe it's an essential to long-term success, regardless of what you're making or you're selling. So, sticking with the status quo is never an option. Look at all the phones out here and think about all the ways the telephone has changed over the years. So, you don't have an option of sticking with the status quo. If you do, you're going to get left behind. Problems today are so much more complex. Just how to communicate with people, how to compete, where to find resources for your company. All of those problems are getting a little more difficult, and you need to start thinking strategically. So how do you do that? You need to innovate. You need to create. And it is not only if you're an accountant, and you have to figure out how to deliver your services in a good way to your customers, or you could be an artist taking photographs. Everybody has to figure out and become and innovate and change what they do to suit the times. One thing that's interesting is we have done a lot of study, and we've also tried this within our organization. We have found that employees rate creative culture on par or more important than salary. We've given our employees a choice between creating a little better environment in the offices that they work in, or having being able to offer lots of flexibility in work-life balance. They choose that over salary raise every single time. The other interesting thing about creativity and the people we work with, they're very rebellious. They're sometimes a challenge to manage, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I always like to say that those of us who work in TV, we're kind of a crazy bunch. So that comes with it. So creativity is both an art and a science. So today I want to kind of walk through how we've done it. I don't pretend to have all the answers, but how we've done it, and also dispel some myths, because I think probably some of you are sitting out there thinking, I'm not that creative. Well, that's wrong. Everyone is creative. You all have different talents. What you can do is build on your creativity. You can train your brain to become more creative. It takes practice. You get better and better with time. Some people think it's so easy. It isn't easy for anybody. It is frustrating a lot of the time, but with practice it gets better. It also takes vulnerability. When you're sitting in a room with people and you're supposed to be throwing out ideas, it's hard. So you have to be really willing to kind of bare your soul in front of people. You also, I don't believe you can do it alone. No one can sit in a room and without any other output, be as creative as they could in a group. We love to brainstorm, but we're going to talk about how we brainstorm. Brainstorming together from the get-go doesn't work. There's something you need to do before you get into a room and start brainstorming. And as I said, it doesn't really get any easier the more you do it. You expand your world, you expand what you're doing, and you rely on the people around you, and that's what makes it so fun and so easy. So kind of going back to Tremendous, we've learned so much about creativity over the years, but when I started that company 24 years ago, I didn't say, okay, I'm going to start this company, we're going to make TV shows, but first we're going to figure out how to cultivate creativity. No, I thought, I want to make a TV show. How hard can that be? And you just dive in. So I like to say, I gave no thought to generating creativity. I just thought we could dream up the idea and sell it. But slowly but surely, we have figured out how we work best, how we as a team work best. And so that's what I kind of want to share with you today. And by virtue of just what we do and where we go, we learn a lot. So a typical day at our office means we're usually in one of more than 90 countries around the world. That's where we produce in. The top picture is a group living with the Maasai in Tanzania, creating a program there. That was for Bizarre Foods. Down below, that's our hosts from Rock the Park who have just landed on a glacier at the base of Denali. So our work takes us all over the world, and it presents lots of obstacles, just getting there and working in some of those places. So we've had volcanoes erupt and ground our crews for weeks on end. We work with the locals, including elephants, so sometimes that can be a little challenging. And, sometimes we're faced with climbing to the top of a mountain and having to haul all of our equipment and the food we're going to eat up there. So that takes a lot of creativity as well to figure that out. I love how what we do expands our view of the world. Above, that was during the last lunar eclipse, and all of our crews who were scattered around the world, or here in the US, stopped what they were doing to kind of take that in. And I never knew there was such a thing as goat yoga until a couple of years ago. So that certainly was a new one for us. And then finally, we go to so many gorgeous places around the world. That's what really fuels, not just the places, but the people who live in, really fuels our creativity and inspires us more. Now, when you throw a bunch of people together, as we have 50, 60 people at any given time who work for us here in Minnesota, and we have an office in Los Angeles. It's hard to say, just put them all in a room and say, create something wonderful. So what we have learned is you really need to be engaged with each other and with the mission of the company. And you need to know those things in order to really feel safe and be able to innovate together. So one of the things we've discovered is the more time we spend together outside of work, the more efficient and the more inspired we are when we sit down to work. So in a given year, we will take in the state fair together. We'll take in Twins games. We have, and we've really challenged our employees to come up with ways that we can spend together, and boy, did they. They have cornhole tournaments, ping pong tournaments. They think of more ways to spend and enjoy time after hours, and sometimes during the day as well, and boy, do those reap huge benefits. We also ask them to share their passions and hobbies at work. And that's so interesting when you get to know what people care about. So we said, if there's a club you want to start here, by all means do it. Well, about 2 weeks later, we had a craft club, and it had more guys coming to it than women. That was a huge eye-opener. Somebody started a lunch club. They realized everybody makes their lunch every day before going to work, and they said, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could make a little more every morning and share it with our coworkers? That way we only have to make lunch once a week. So that's what they've done. They make fabulous gourmet lunches, and each person only has to do it once a week. Thank you. Is this working now? Okay. Then we have a yoga club. We have a plank club. We have, everybody celebrates everyone's key life milestones. So we have bridal showers. We have baby showers. So it's a great way for people to get to know each other and become a family. And that's really what we feel like we are. You also have to be very vulnerable when you are kicking out ideas for the next television show. So the other thing we like to do is do really weird stuff. We have costume parties. Halloween, that's our CFO up there, is Robin Hood. The bottom picture was a bridal shower we had, and one of the tasks was to create a wedding dress out of toilet paper. And for some reason, it was all guys who volunteered to be the models. I don't know what that says about us, but our team once had a tournament to help an employee who was pondering what kind of new shoes to buy. They had a tournament to select the shoes that he would be buying. In the end, all of this encourages teamwork, because when we are out in the field producing programs, you're working with a big group of people who come from all over, different backgrounds, and so you have to be good at working with different people. Now, lest you think all we do is have fun, we do get serious. And the thing that we get most serious about is the why. The why are we here? Why do we do it? We have at kind of our cornerstone of our company is, the belief that character matters. Character matters both in the people we put on screen and in the people who are creating that program. And it really is the reason we do the shows that we do. We don't want to create a show just for the sake of selling it and making some money. We want to feature passionate people, whether they're bakers, whether they're homemakers, whether they are doctors, whatever they do. We want to feature passionate people who are doing good things for each other and for the world and for the planet. And we want to introduce people to places and cultures they may not have ever seen or have a chance to go to otherwise. We think it helps bring the world a little closer together and leaves it a much kinder place. So this is some of the things we encourage each other to do. Everybody recommends different places within the community that we can support. We used to be office near a dog shelter, and we would walk dogs during lunch. It was good for them and good for us. We work closely with Jack Jablonski and the I Believe in Miracles Foundation. And we do a lot of volunteering in kitchens. This is Open Arms, which prepares meals for people with life-threatening diseases. Ronald McDonald House, our COO, goes around the world. She takes a vacation, a 2-week vacation every year, and she started in, I think, Vietnam, Peru, South Africa. She just came back from Nepal, and she'll go and volunteer teaching English as a second language in those places. So all of this brings a sense of, mission and passion into what we're doing. And we really believe that creativity is power if you can use it for good. So it's really what governs what we do. Now, also, and by the way, none of these are like in order of importance, but other thing we think is very important is where we work. If you're going to try and nurture a creative atmosphere, what you're surrounded by matters. We love, and I love, as you can tell, bright colors. We love green plants. We want to make our office look like a home. And because we spend as much time, if not more, in our offices than we do at home. We also have been blessed with the ability to expand. We've moved a lot. So we believe in being around green spaces and animals. And seriously, we are around so many animals, they're very curious about what we do. I have had turkeys tap on my window, and this guy kept trying to get in. I don't know what he wanted, but being around something that makes you smile, makes you feel good is terrific. We also believe in stress busters. We have lots of treat times. People bring in things they've made and share it, but we also believe in bringing your best friend into the office. Up in the upper left is Ike. He's responsible for travel coordination. Oliver, just below him, works in accounting. And they are just a sample of the dogs that come to work once in a while. The dog on the bottom on the right is my daughter's dog. We were taking care of Buster for a while, so I brought him in, and he was demonstrating how to take a nap, take a break during the day. So as you can see, it is... we're very careful and very picky about what our environment looks like. The other thing I so believe in is being flexible. I always say beware of rigid rules. We are all trying to find a balance between life and work. And I belong to a women's president's organization. And there are times when people will express a frustration that their employees want to take time off to go here and see a soccer game that their child is in or a school play. To me, it is the smartest, it's the right thing to do, but it's also the smartest thing to do. We love it when our people take time out to go and be with their family, be at school, do what they need to do. And some people also don't work well in an office. So people work from home when they need to. And I say it's the smart thing to do because you create such a loyalty among your workforce. I often say to people, they would walk to the ends of the earth for each other and for the company because of the flexibility that they're given. And we work long hours, and they are always willing to go above and beyond the call of duty. Just being flexible helps people be more creative because they don't have that angst of my daughter's sick, I need to be home with her, or I want to see my son sing that song in the school play. So it's something we really believe in. Also, This is huge. Obviously, you need to build a diverse team. A lot of times, we want to replicate ourselves. We want to hire somebody that believes in the things we do, that is like us. And that's the worst thing you can do in terms of trying to spur innovation because, if you replicate yourself, nothing kills creativity faster because you need other points of view. You need other people who have different perspectives. One of the biggest things that I think a huge, huge blessing for us is we have a lot of young people, a lot of millennials working for us, and they think a lot differently than we did or still do, but they are, when they come in, they offer up some fresh ideas that we would never, ever have thought of. The way they view the world is vastly different, so they're a huge, huge blessing. You need to be sure that you look for the right culture fit, but certainly don't look for somebody who looks like you or thinks like you. Hire rebels, out-of-the-box thinkers, people who aren't afraid to challenge the status quo and push the CFO or CEO and insist that, no, you've got it wrong. Those are the kinds of people you want working for you. This next area is really so important. You have to empower the team. Even if someone thinks Darth Vader can fix the copy machine, which, you got to let him, give him a try. But all kidding aside, everyone in your organization can innovate and be part of this process. Your bookkeeper, people that may not even consider themselves creative can certainly be a part of this. We invite everyone into our brainstorming sessions. And the reason we have these is because a network will call up or we'll learn that Discovery is looking for a particular kind of show, and we want to throw out as many ideas. We always send out the invitation and we send out what we're hoping to create ahead of time. That way people have time to think about it and come in and offer up their ideas. I am always amazed at who comes up with what turns out to be the idea we're going to move forward with. We are on a project right now for History Channel, and we are creating a show called The First. Hopefully someday you'll get to see it if we're successful in selling it. But The First is really a series that explores all the things you take for granted but you never knew how they started. So we're going to go back and show how everything originally happened. And the guy that got most excited about this is an editor who's been working for us for 45 years. Editors tend to close the door, turn the lights out, and work on their projects. And they don't have a lot of interaction in a day. But this guy got so excited about this project, he has been spending his mornings, his days, his evenings, his weekends coming up with ideas. He comes into my office every day with new ideas. And so you never know. You should invite everybody into the process because you just never know who's going to come up with the great idea. On the other hand, we have a young man who is a production coordinator who has been part of traveling or creating all the logistics for all the crews we travel around the world. He came in a couple of months ago and said, I'd like to help develop new show ideas. And so we decided to give him a shot at it because I do think you need to really help grow people, let people try new things. That guy single-handedly has done more in 2 months in terms of finding new talent, finding new ideas than most of the rest of the development team has done in a year. So it is amazing. He just found a group of guys who are renovating a small estate in England that was owned originally by King Henry VII. They are only the second owners since King Henry II. the 7th, excuse me. King Henry VII gifted it to a family. And that family has owned it for 500 plus years and just sold it to these guys. It hasn't been lived in 90 years, but it's such an amazing place. They have caretakers' cottages and gardeners' cottages and a big Georgian manor house that got built somewhere during those 500 years. Anyway, that's going to be an amazing project when we get going on it. And then a week ago, I was at a conference where you meet with all of the networks and they tell you what they're looking for. And I was really impressed with Game Show Network. We've never done a game show. And, but the opportunities are pretty huge there right now, and I love what they stand for. One of their things is, we don't want to do a mean game show. We don't want to do a show that shames people. We want to do a show that just celebrates information and celebrates the fun of a game. So we talked about it on Friday, a week ago Friday, and I said, anybody got any ideas? Let's think on it and come back and see, if we can create something like this. Well, the guy in red went home over the weekend. He created this whole game with props. This Monday, he started getting people into the studio playing it. It's a great game called On Second Thought, and it is. We're going to be pitching it next week. That's how quickly it can happen when you ask people to be a part of it. So. Oops, I'm sorry, I'm going in the opposite direction here. You also, when you empower the team, just like that young guy who found the home from King Henry VII, when you empower people to kind of stretch, they grow and they learn and they have such a sense of ownership in what you're doing. This is just to illustrate this. This was our team from Rock the Park. One of them, my son, was fearless and jumped from this big cliff, and he's encouraging his buddy Colton, who eventually did do it as well. But that's just kind of a metaphor for how all of us are capable of, stretching our wings and doing amazing things. The other thing that we always say you have to understand why you're creating what you're doing and who you're doing it for. When you create a program, there's always a little push and pull between the network that you're working for, and they'll make what seems like impossible demands, but they are, when you understand that they're just like you, they want to be successful, they want to, in the end, they've got families, they're trying to balance everything. We really work hard on making sure that everybody is understanding of who we're working for, and that by really working together and lifting them up, as well as the viewers who will eventually see it, will be more successful. And then lastly, we celebrate every success and every failure. And obviously, the reason everyone realizes why you celebrate success, it's fun to win. It's absolutely fun to win. But it's also important to celebrate the failures, because there's so much you can learn from them. We celebrate sometimes because the idea we came up with was a really good idea. It's just that someone came up with a slightly better one and they won the job. But we want to recognize the good work that went into it. We also celebrate those occasions when things don't go the way we want. About a year and a half ago, Travel Channel, who we did 2/3 of our business with, came to us and said, on one day, we have decided we're no longer going to do food or travel programs. We're going to do paranormal shows. And so they, in one day, turned the switch from food and travel to paranormal. We lost 2/3 of our business. We're still not back to where we were. We're still working on trying to dig ourselves out of that. But I will tell you, I have never seen a more creative time, and a happier group of people because we're all working toward that common good. So on the day we learned, or the week we learned we were losing that business, we brought in a food truck for a treat, just to prop people up, get people excited about coming up with a more diverse slate where that wouldn't happen to us again. Finally, creativity is really messy. That's just the message I want to try and leave you with. You know, when you're trying to do good, you're trying to, we like to say, save the world, bring people together through the programs we do. It's messy. You don't always get it right, but it is. We do it because we believe in what we're doing. We believe that in some small way, you know, we're contributing to the world, maybe leaving it a little better place than when we found it. So in all that you do, please realize each and every one of you has this creative spark in you, and it can live in your family, it can live in your church, it can live in the places that you work. Thank you so much. It's been great to be with you today.
Thanks, Colleen. As leaders, one of the things that we get to do is cultivate creative environments. And what I love is basically what Colleen said was our role in that is to help people feel safe, help people feel, give them a voice and give them a sense of belonging. And when we do that, we are able to help them share their ideas, help them live their lives, and be a part of what's happening. Super good. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I'm going to take a lot away from that and how we can create creative environments. The only thing that I don't think we want to create creative environments is our accounting department. I had a business professor that told me we don't want a creative accounting. So if you're in accounting, there's other ways you can be creative. But I think we're all creative, so that's really good. I'm excited for our next guest, John Butcher. He's the CEO and president of Caribou Coffee. John and his wife have 3 kids. It's because of John and his work that I am often over-caffeinated. John's a fantastic leader, but more than that, he has a heart for people. He cares about people in amazing ways, and we're grateful that he's here and with us this morning. Will you join me in welcoming John Butcher?
Good morning. Okay, so I had 2 important realizations already this morning. First, I need to be a little bit more creative. And to that end, I think I'm going to go ahead and give you all my comments in my best British accent this morning. So here I go. No, I'm kidding. My wife and my kids, I think, would probably both disown me. Okay, so do me a favor, oblige me. Stand up if you lead people or you think you in any way impact those around you. Stand up. Everyone should be standing. This is for you. I know how hard it is to sit for an hour. Raise a hand if you are led by anybody. Okay, raise your other hand if you think there's at least one thing you can improve upon as a leader. Okay, this is how I feel too. Okay, now hop up and down. No, I'm kidding. You can sit down. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about this morning is values. Values in the workplace, how your personal values create a connective tissue through everything that we do. Everything that we do at work, everything that we do in our personal lives. And one of the greatest leadership lessons I've learned over time is it's as important for our teams to be galvanized around how and why they're working to achieve the goals that they're achieving as it is what the goal actually is. And so just to bring that to life for a second, okay, a company's goal, I want to grow sales from $500 million to $1 billion. Why? So that we can get rich and buy a Tesla? How? So that we can quickly cut expenses, shred ourselves of core competencies to make the goal by the end of the year because that's what's most important? Or Are we trying to build a company so that we can double our sales and do more good? Are we trying to, if we reach a goal, starting a college scholarship program? Are we trying to build a company that has a legacy bigger than ourselves that's going to last for generations? So the how, the why is really as important, if not more important, I believe, than the what. I've only been at 2 companies for most of my career, but I've had in 24 years 16 different jobs. And so that means I've had to introduce myself a lot of times to new teams, sometimes dozens of people, sometimes thousands of people. And I've had to get to know them. And I tell you, I've learned a lot throughout that journey on the most efficient and effective ways to share the right amount of information to create trust. It used to start off with, I'm John, here's where I'm from, here's my family, pretty superficial stuff. Let's all sing our college fight songs. Then it transitioned to, I'm John, here's my family, here's what's important to me. And just so you know a little bit about me, these are my values. And I don't always share deeply what I'm going to share with all of you today, which is a synopsis, the easiest way for me to explain what my personal values are. I usually share them privately with my direct report team. But then I know that my value system as a leader influences those around me and has the power to influence those much more broadly in the company. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Caribou Coffee's purpose statement and then how sometimes personal values can be incongruent with company values. And that's something, quite frankly, we could talk all day about, but we'll talk about it in about 4 or 5 minutes. Then I'm going to go through, lastly, and talk about my guiding principles. Your values impact almost everything that you end up doing. And what I do share more broadly with the people on my teams is the expectations that I try and uphold as a leader. I do that so that they can hold me accountable. But I also just kind of set the tone for my teams on, hey, these are 10 things that I think are really important as we work together and build a great team. So those are the 3 things that we're going to talk about today. And why are values so important? The reason is because your value system impacts your beliefs. Your beliefs influence your behaviors, and behaviors drive change. And this is a really good time for 2 disclaimers. First, I'm not a professor or a pastor or someone who has studied any of this stuff. So, these are all of my opinions. So, Pastor Joel, if I say something that's, just raise your hand if you want to redirect me. These are things I've observed. This is how I articulate to my teams what I've seen happen in companies over time. And the second disclaimer, and I ask for your partnership before I even start sharing anything about me, I'm sharing my personal values and how my values lead to my leadership expectations. These are mine. I'm not asking you to adopt them. I'm not asking you to articulate them. But I do believe that the why and your personal why is important for you to understand because the more you know about yourself, the faster you can build trust and build a complementary group of people around you with supporting skill sets for the good of your companies, your teams, and your families. So when someone says, John, what's important to you? I summarize things in these 4 areas for me. Be good, do good, work hard, and love hard. I'm just going to go through each one of them really quickly. So be good. Basic, but integrity, honesty, and authenticity. I love having a culture of authenticity and transparency. It breeds oftentimes conflict, but usually it's healthy conflict. When you think about integrity, I know for many of us that probably goes without saying, but about 2.5, 3 weeks ago, I was at a dinner with CEOs and board members from some of the biggest companies on the planet. It was Apple, Disney, Microsoft, General Motors, all sorts of phenomenal brands. And a question was asked to some of these leaders: when you're placing CEOs, what are the top 5 qualities that you look for? Every single board member, every one of them had integrity in those top 5. And 2 of the 6 people that answered only answered with integrity. But that's it. You have to have integrity. And it's crazy, but we are in a little bit of an integrity crisis in our country. And in our leadership positions, the human side of who we're built to be often shows. So be good is a baseline expectation that, of course, we all fall flat with sometimes, but it's a value. Do good. Be a light. We're all called to be a light, but I want to be a light in my family, my community, and any business that I'm going to be a part of. Life is way too short to spend our time doing boring stuff and to do things without meaning. It's just a fact. Surround yourself with people that you love and force yourself to own being a light. God gives each one of us gifts. We each have different experiences, and God doesn't hope that we share those gifts. He expects us to share those gifts. So this, as we think about what we're called to do to build His kingdom, is to force ourselves to get out of our comfort zone and be a light. Work hard. This was instilled to me at a really young age, but there's an Arthur Ashe quote I've always really liked. Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. And I've thought about that a lot throughout my life because we're all going to be in challenging times. We all have those moments where we have to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps. But you can make the most of any single situation that you're in, whether it's personal or professional, whatever challenge you might be facing. Hard work gets you through it. I have 2 lessons up here from my grandfathers, one from each of them. Never give up. When I used to talk to my grandpa who lived through World War II, he hated to talk about it. Some of my most memorable moments in my childhood were the few times I could get him to talk. And when I asked him, how did you do it? He just said, you never give up. You keep the faith and you never give up. It makes me think sometimes how easy the challenges are that I face in life when I think about the challenges that he faced and that so many other people face. Exactly what Chris was saying. It's that faith that continues to pull us through. But we have to work hard and do our part. My other grandpa used to say this Henry Ford quote quite a bit. You can't build a reputation on what you're going to do. My parents used to send me periodically, almost every summer when I was growing up, to Wisconsin. I was raised in Indiana. I thought I knew what hard work looked like. They would send me to the dairy farm in Wisconsin where my 70-year-old grandpa could throw a bale of hay across the barn and I would be dragging it, and here I'm a high school football player, can't keep up with him. And I think he must have known I needed that little push sometimes because you can say what you're going to do, but then you kind of have to do that thing too. And so I love that quote's always in the back of my head when I'm thinking about hard work. And then love hard. Be others focused. I steal a lot from Joel, but one of them is when I'm talking to my teams, I love the here I am type of people versus a there you are type of a person. I use it, I steal it with pride. That's when I talk about being others focused, that's how I articulate that to people. But I try and do that as much as I possibly can. There should be evidence. You should be able to demonstrate your love through your actions. Your team should know that you love them. Those around you should know that you love them. I ask my team every once in a while, do you know how much I love you? We just got done with a really challenging week of work. It was a phenomenal week, but We had our national sales meeting for Caribou Coffee at the Mall of America. We had all 500 store managers there. It took 6 months of planning. It was long days. And at the end, I pulled the team aside, and we all kind of had some emotional moments. It was, like I said, a great long week. But I said, do you guys know how much I love you? And I have the best team. And they said, you don't have to ask, we know. And so you want that. And sometimes you have someone on your team that you just don't love. Get them out. Get them out. There is no room for those people. Get them out. Love hard. One thing I have to say about love is that kindness and love can so often be misinterpreted for weakness. And part of loving people is giving them great feedback. I tell my teams when I'm first getting to know them, one of the things that's going to make you feel uncomfortable, that you're probably going to wonder about yourself in the first few weeks of working with me, you're going to think I hate your guts. And it's probably not true, probably. You have to be able to give people feedback on what's working. What are you interpreting? What are you seeing? And that's one of the signs of love that leaders can use to hold people accountable, build trust on teams, and I expect it back. I ask for feedback all the time, and it's harder to get good feedback the bigger your title becomes. Those around you, the closest to you, should have no problem with it, but titles are scary for people. Jobs are scary for people, and you have to be able to surround yourself by people that are going to hold you accountable and give you that great feedback over time. But love expresses itself a lot of different ways and is definitely one of my personal values. The purpose statement at Caribou is to create day-making experiences that spark a chain reaction of good. And the reason that we wrote the purpose statement this way is because we believe that the coffee house, just by the nature of the business and the nature of our product, it's usually the first place that you might go in the morning outside of your own house. So the people that you see at a Caribou are probably the first people you're going to see outside of your own family. That opportunity for us to make your day can spark something that's really different and unique compared to the way that most businesses are positioned in the Twin Cities. If we have a great interaction and you leave happy, the next person you encounter, maybe even in your car, you might treat with a little bit more grace. If we mess everything up, you might not start your day off well. Either way, we have an opportunity to spark a chain reaction. Another thing I've completely pilfered from Joel is the opportunity to have the impact on people here, near, and far. So we talk about, at Caribou, doing good. And it's a legacy for us. I didn't start this. Kim and John Puckett, when they started Caribou in 1992, wrote into the manifesto this concept of being do-gooders, having an impact, picking it. It's a values-based organization. But we talk about how powerful it is to be positioned as a coffee house where we can do good in our neighborhood, right here, right now, right today. We do 126,000 transactions every day at Caribou. 40 million opportunities a year we have to make someone's day. That's a lot here. But domestically, we do business in all 50 states in one way, shape, or form. We impact hundreds of other companies, suppliers, other brands. We can have an impact. And then far, I don't know if you know this, but Caribou has 300 international locations. And it's really quite a privilege to be able to impact people in other countries, but we also source our coffee from 30 different countries, where the price that we pay for coffee is relatively inconsequential to everyone in this room, but paying a little bit more, an extra $1 per pound, literally changes lives in some of these countries. I was in Guatemala a little bit ago. And when I was down there, I went to a farm where we agreed last year to increase the pay. You guys have seen the flood of immigrants coming in through the southern border. Many of them are farmers from Guatemala who can no longer sustain a living. The farmers' lives have been changed by depression in the price of many of the commodities that they grow, and coffee's one of them. So we decided to pay a little bit more. And it was really gratifying to be able to go down there and see firsthand that because of that decision and our decision to commit long-term 30, 40, 50-year contracts with some of these farmers, they use that extra little bit of money to put a metal roof over their houses instead of plastic. Inconsequential for us, but our ability to impact people far away is great. When we talk about fulfilling this purpose, values are so important. So Caribou has a core set of values that as a leadership team we aligned on. It's things like make fun happen, serve with love, take ownership, and one of them is be yourself. And this is one of those things where we don't all, in a team of thousands, you're not going to get alignment on a core value system, personal values. It's not going to happen. But the way that we talk about this at Caribou is we say, these are our 5 core values as a company. You're all going to come with your own personal value set, but you have to sign up for these 5. And if you can't sign up for these 5, this might not be the place for you. And one of them is be yourself. And that's the one that opens up the door for us to have some really difficult and interesting conversations. Be yourself could be, I have tattoos. I have piercings. I have a different belief system. Joel knows this, but the person that runs our international stores, his name is Hamid Al-Sayer. He's Kuwaiti, and I love him like a brother. He's an amazing human being, and we've had hours and hours and hours of really deep conversations about our belief systems. Through those conversations, I've learned that about 95% of my core values match about 95% of his. We have some extremely fundamental differences on the last 5. But Hamid and I have both signed up to fulfill Caribou Coffee's core value system. And as we do that, it allows us to achieve our purpose. Does that make sense? Like that's how it's a tough topic because everyone's experiences, belief system, backgrounds, value system, there might be some incongruencies with a company's purpose statement or a company's value system, but you have to find the overlap and create what has to be a non-negotiable in expected behaviors and values. And we measure that, and we talk about it a lot at Caribou. Okay, so everything I just shared with you, I only share with some people. The next 10 things I share with almost everybody. And over time, I didn't ask for this, but people have, there's a summary of these that a lot of our team members pin up. They put up on their desks just to remind themselves of what I hold myself accountable to, and therefore typically my leaders as well. But here they are, and you'll see a thread from values into leadership expectations or guiding principles. Those are kind of interchangeable in my language. But first, I expect anyone on my team to lead with integrity. We already talked about that, so I won't go too deep on it, but we talk about character. We talk about doing the right thing, not the easy thing. And I loved what Chris said, leading by example. There's so many times that we don't understand. If you don't hold a title of CEO, I promise you there's still someone that's looking at you to see how you behave in tough times. They're watching you. They really are. You all have spheres of influence. That's a power that we all have to take really seriously. Lead by example. People are watching. But then follow. Follow with faith. We don't all know God's path for us, but you have to know when you have to step in and be a leader and take charge and just just make a decision and go, and you have to know when to just follow your team and trust them. This is something that I've done naturally for whatever reason for a long time that was sometimes questioned and perceived as a weakness. Well, why are you just following them? You're the one that's supposed to be making the decision. And the answer is 95% of the time in my life, the right answer to any problem is on your team. You can go ask them. People just don't usually do it. Some of the most complicated tasks that I was given to solve, in the first week, I went out and asked 100 people, and by the end of the week, we had the answer. Like, well, yeah, it's right there. They had it. Well, how'd you do that so fast? I asked the team. They told me. And we did it, and it worked, and everyone thought that I was a genius. I did literally nothing. Literally, the team knew the answer and then fulfilled it. So following is as important as leading. Creating a titleless culture helps you do that. You know, the military, some of you know, have a procedure that after they're done with tactical operations, they sit in a circular table so that there's nobody perceived to have a power advantage over somebody else, and they literally remove all of their accreditations and anything associated with title. And they recap because they want feedback on what worked and what didn't work and how are we going to do it next time. You know why? Because lives are at stake. I'm in the coffee industry. Worst thing that happens to us is not the same as the military, but we can learn from what they do. It's really important to create a culture where there's respect and clarity on who has decision-making rights. So you do need titles and you do need structure, but we need to have a culture where people can walk in and share openly. So know when to lead, know when to follow. Develop amazing teams. That's what I wanted to do. And at Target, one of the things that I liked to do, this was an internal competition with myself. Target's headquarters had about almost 13,000 people in them. We had a lot of different teams. I secretly said, I want to be the leader that if everyone's lined up for dodgeball and they're picking the leader for that next team, I want them to join my team. I want people begging to be on my team. Why? Because that means we're creating a team that is magnetic, where people feel like they can be developed, where they can grow personally, where we can have a lot of fun. But ultimately, it's about them. We talked about feedback, so I won't go into that. But saying yes to the person and no to the idea is another thing that when we talk about developing great teams, allows people to build that trust. Not every idea is a great idea. And that was another thing I had to talk with my team about from stage a couple days ago. I hear you, but just because you say it doesn't mean we're going to do it. And just because you had an idea, it doesn't mean it's a good idea. So how do we make sure that we express gratitude for the fact that we have a culture where we can share those ideas, but then trust each other to know that we're going to pick the best ones, regardless of whose idea it was, and we're going to do our best to drive results with it. So develop great teams. Never stop learning. That natural curiosity that we have as human beings needs to be deployed all the time. When I went away to college, my grandma said, it doesn't really matter where you go, and it really doesn't matter what you learn. You have to learn how to learn. And if you can learn how to learn, she was an English teacher. She was the first female English teacher in the state of Wisconsin back in the 1920s. She said, if you can learn how to learn, then you're set. So keep that natural curiosity. You can learn from everyone around you. Take the most challenging assignments. Step out of your comfort zone. Rapid testing, speed over perfection. Just keep learning, keep trying new things, because you're going to have way more data sets and you'll make better decisions. Be authentic. I said it already, but if you can't be true to who you are and who you strive to be and lead by example, then you're never going to have a team that people want to be a part of. Everyone's different. That's one of the reasons I love coming to work. I'm around people that completely motivate me and challenge me and push me, They're authentic to who they are. And when there's some great stories that I could share, but don't have time to today, about trying to lead like someone else or be someone else. It never works. So I don't know if you've ever tried it. I've tried it, completely failed. I've seen it on my teams before. Like, you're trying to be him. You're trying to be her. Stop it. Be yourself. You're going to be a way, way, way more authentic and better leader if you can. And I love that last bullet up there, if you can see it. This is what I ripped off from Maya Angelou. But it's so true. And I saw this 15 or 20 years ago, and I wrote it down, and I said, man, I just have to remember the power in that statement. Because it's so true. I mean, we all get up, we talk, we say something, and I guarantee we're all going to retain different amounts of that information, but the feeling is what we can hook onto. It's really, really important. My dad told me when I got my first job that the best leaders take the heat and they shed the light. When you're a leader and you're in a position, you're there because someone believes in you. When something doesn't go right, take blame for it, even if you don't even know what it is. There are a few times that the way that I built trust with my team was stepping into a room where someone was getting chewed out, and I said, well, hey, wait a minute, that was me. And I didn't even know what it was. My team knew it, and they're like, why did you do that? I was like, well, I don't know. What happened? What was going on? Why were we getting chewed out in there? But your team is doing all the work. They're the ones that I'm expecting to move fast and move with integrity. And I'm trying to create a culture where people can make mistakes every once in a while. Take the heat yourself when it's not going right. And then when things go right, shed the light to them and give them all the credit. It's so powerful. People did that for me early in my career, and just having someone notice how hard you worked and your own personal contribution to something, it meant so much. It kept me going. There were some leaders I'd run through brick walls for, and there were some leaders at 5:30 came along, and I was like, choo-choo, I'm out of here, see you tomorrow. You know. So I think this is an important component of recognition that we as leaders can do for our teams. I had a boss once that said, vision. If you don't have one, get one. And for us, it's about creating a common understanding of where we're headed. I always think about a road trip. First, we have to decide where we're going, so we all know what the destination is, how to pack for it, how long it's going to take. Then we can chart a path, and then we can all say, here's where we are on our journey right now. Here's how much farther we have to go. Uh-oh, we strayed from our path. Let's get back on it. The vision is the guidepost to whether we're achieving our goals as an organization or not. So we try and make sure that that vision is clear and that there's clear accountabilities throughout the organization to make sure that we're on that right journey. Trust your instincts, they're usually right. I don't know why, but it took me a long time to realize this. Our experiences, our intuition, that visceral reaction that we have when something's good or something's bad, again, it's the way that God wires us. But we usually have a great response to the correct path. You have to just take your chances every once in a while and follow it. Don't be afraid to take informed risks and have faith that no matter what happens, you're going to learn from it, you're going to keep moving, and everything is going to end up being just fine. Empower your leaders. Once trust is established, once you've assessed everyone's capabilities and you've built a great team, you have alignment, you have a vision, you have to just let people run. It's what makes my job so easy. That's what I've been working on for my first 2.5 years at Caribou, is surrounding myself by a group of people who are better than me in almost every regard of their role. I could not be a CFO on my best day. I have an amazing CFO. I could not run IT on my best day, but I have a guy who's phenomenal. My team is outstanding. I trust him, I empower him, and we're going to win or not together. And then lastly, you have to really focus on staying sharp yourself. That's not just through learning, but it's making sure that you are always living your priorities, not losing yourself in your title, you're losing your identity in what people think you might be or who you might be. It happens a lot, especially for people with my title, because there's an expectation that as a president or a CEO that you stand for certain things. You have to make sure you stay grounded. My wife, since we were high school sweethearts, she knows me better than anybody. And she's usually that person that says, "What's happening over there? That doesn't seem like you." Stay grounded into who you are. And then I talked about this on the podcast, the Westwood podcast, but I read a book a while ago by a guy named Stu Friedman, and it's called Total Leadership, and I hate business books, so I read this one begrudgingly. It was demanded and expected that we read it. And I got a ton out of it. And I actually ended up meeting the author, and I went to go speak at Wharton as an exchange for what he taught me. And what he talked about was the myth of balance and how we're all taught to have this work-life balance. We're all taught to find the right path for us. And his life study was to say, what makes people happy? What makes people happy around the world? And what he found, quick summary, was it's 4 areas of life that humans spend their time, that when the harmony of those 4 areas is correct, you find your personal happiness. It's your personal time, which encompasses spirituality, however you might get renewed. Could be exercise, could be whatever it might be. It's time with your family. It's having a purpose at work. And it's making sure that you're a part of a community. Those 4 areas, Stu says, don't find balance, find harmony to make sure that all 4 of those areas of your life are working together. And it was a complete game changer for me because it meant now I wanted to integrate my family with work. It meant I wanted to start talking about my spirituality with the people I trust in each of those areas. And you think about a string quartet and how beautiful it is when those 4 areas play harmoniously and how gross it can sound if one is out of tune or isn't being heard. So part of staying sharp is making sure that as leaders, we all show up refreshed, renewed, and have an idea of what's going to keep us fed. I've been out of time for 5 minutes and 5 seconds, 7 seconds, 9 seconds. So I was the one selling Chris. I was like, "Chris, I know you're going to talk for an hour and a half. I'm not going to," and he didn't. He was right on time. So I'm over. I better stop talking. Thank you guys for coming this morning. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, John. I have 2 shameless plugs. John mentioned the Westwood podcast. All 3 of our speakers this morning have been on the Westwood podcast. Those are available on our website. So if you like what you heard, you want to hear maybe a little bit of their own personal stories and hear about their leadership and how they're living that out every single day, you can go to the Westwood podcast, enjoy that. It's a great listen. The second is today's recording. Today we are recording all of these talks, and they will be available online after this. So if there was something you weren't able to jot down, go back, listen to it. And I also encourage you, as the video becomes available, share it with people in your sphere of influence, encourage them that way, and engage them. I'm talking fast because John went over. But I do want to introduce our last speaker. You know him well, Joel Johnson. He's been Westwood senior pastor for 25 years, and we're grateful that he's here with us. So will you welcome Joel?
Wow, that's just been a rich morning. And if you need to go, you need to go, by the way. I've been amazed by your self-control. That's, to be honest with you. I want to give a shout out to those that are online with us. Glad that you're with us. I understand that this is not an exclusively Westwood Community Faith gathering. And so for those of you who are guests, I hope you feel at home today as well. We're just delighted that you could be with us today. And John, each of you, first of all, I'm just blessed. We have a leadership-rich church. And we're trying to find new ways to bring the leadership voices of all of you to the forefront, whether it's podcasts. This is the first time we've done this in this leadership kind of training experience. But to whom much has been given, much is required, says the Lord. So we need to steward better the resources. And we have learned so much this morning. And I personally have learned from each of you. I have a long history here with most of our guest speakers today. And it's been a profound thing to come alongside and learn from them. Think about Chris. We go all the way back to when Christy was born and living in the same neighborhood. And to see where you are today. And if you hear him speak about the Allianz Field as being a cathedral for the nations. Now that aligns with our mission to reach people from the families of the earth, because it's the heart of God. And your advocacy for the nations just enriches my own leadership and my own confidence along the way. And Colleen, when we took a little tour with some of our team to come into your environment, your work environment, and you told that story of the crisis when you lost 2/3 of your business, you got off the phone and got that news, brought all your team together. I will never forget that moment, because you brought them together and you brought calm. And I think leaders that are transformative leaders, influential leaders, bring calm in the middle of the storm, and they create urgency when there's complacency. And you do that so well. And I took that away, and I brought lift to me and my own encouragement for leadership here. And then, of course, for John, just fun. Caribou, how fun. This is a fun deal that he gets to be part of. But this is a guy who's a culture guy. There's a saying that culture eats strategy for lunch. Strategy is really important, but you're a culture guy. You create culture. And after the Christmas services, my mom was with me, and I took her home, just the two of us, and we stopped at the cabin, which is in Jordan. It's the Caribou Cabin. It's a new entrepreneurial concept. If you've not been there, you've got to go. And I had to call John afterwards because the experience we had was so profound. And there's a guy there that's working that John personally has lifted his sense of identity and his sense of purpose in the world, and is serving in a way that it touches you. You just want to go back again and again. So thanks for teaching culture by really the behavior, the example. Both of you brought that to the table. And I think about leadership is behavior. It's not position. And what a gift. We are blessed to have these leaders today. Now, that has nothing to do with my time. Can we start my time all over again? I just felt I needed to say that. I've been blessed by your leadership today. And I have one contrarian thing to what John said, because I've never heard this. You love people. If you don't love them, they get out. They have to get out. I just want to say, I love you all. We're together. It's 2020, and Westwood's 25th birthday is going to be celebrated at Easter, and a couple weeks after, we're going to have a little season of celebrating, and we're going to throw a party, and you're all invited to that party, and I hope you'll come. And because it's our 25th birthday, it also means it's my 25th birthday, since I've had the privilege to come and start the church in the Chanhassen Dinner Theater in 1995. And I've seen God's goodness 1,000 times over through leaders like you. Many of you who have just said, count on me, and wow, have you given yourself, and just blessed. We are blessed because of how you serve. What God has done through you is extraordinary, and what a joy it is to serve alongside of you, and I know there's so much still to come. I usually use this time when we gather every year for a leadership vision update, and our board met last week, and I'm going to touch on it just briefly at the end of my time. I want to pivot, take a different direction today, and I want to speak about leaders finishing well. What does it mean to finish well? It's an important question. Personally, I want to hear many things from the voice of Jesus, but one of the things I want to hear him say is my name, and to say, Joel, well done, good and faithful servant. And I don't think I'm alone in that desire. Most of us would be inclined to want to hear that. I want to finish well, don't you? You want to finish well. I just want to clarify before I go any further. I'm not dying. It's not why I've chosen this. I'm not retiring anytime soon, not that I know of anyway, so please don't text. Joel talked about finishing. I think he's done. It's not that way at all. I just think it's an important subject, whether you're at the beginning of the journey of your life, your career, your family, or you're at the end season of it. It's the same question we all have to wrestle. What does it mean to finish well? I graduated from seminary at Fuller Theological Seminary in Pasadena, California, and Bobby Clinton is a professor of leadership there. He is a world-renowned professor of leadership, genius guy, great biblical scholar, but also culture scholar as well. And he did an intensive study on the Bible, leaders in the Bible and leaders outside of the Bible, leaders of yesterday and leaders of today. There are about, according to his research, 800 identifiable leaders mentioned in the Bible. 100 of those leaders are those that you can interpret something about their leadership or leadership style. About 50 of them you can actually evaluate how they finished their life journey and leadership journey. His research concludes that 1 out of 3 biblical leaders actually finished well. He took the same criteria and he applied it to 1,400 modern day leaders, and the ratio was the same. And it's a little discouraging when you hear that, to think that 1 out of 3 leaders really finish well. Because I think we live with the presumption and the assumption that we'll just finish well. But it's really hard to finish well. So it got me thinking, for me and for you and for Westwood, as we're celebrating 25 years this year, I want to finish well, and I want you to finish well. So I'm starting to carve this out. I'm going to continue to work on it because I want it to be a compass for my own life, but you're going to get the embryonic work and a few reflections about what it means to finish well. How do we actually go about it? Which, by the way, we're all going to finish. We're going to finish serving perhaps in the current workplace that you're at. You're going to finish maybe in the ministry team that you have, and you're going to finish your life at some time. The question isn't, are you going to finish? It's, how can you finish well? The Apostle Paul finished well. Boy, you would think the trumpets would be blowing on the face of the planet. That wasn't the case for him. His finishing line was a dungeon in Rome. And Carrie and I had a chance to go visit the prison place for Paul's last journey, or suspected dungeon place where he was going to be taken and beheaded. And he was there at the end of his life, gray-haired, no money, no prestige, no comfort, only had his memories and the reflections of the journey of following Christ there. He would no longer start another church. He would no longer write another letter. He was just facing any day. You can almost hear the soldiers, Roman soldiers ahead, just above his head, because he's down in a dungeon, getting ready to take him out to actually kill him. You can feel it. But after all that he had done, this is the thanks that the world would give to him. But there would be so much more that is there. I treasure the last words of people. As a pastor, I have that privileged place to be alongside the bedside of dying people. And it's amazing the last things that they say. Here's a few of Paul's last words from 2 Corinthians 4:6. For I am already being poured out like an offering, and the time for my departure is near. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. He's in a dungeon. He's speaking to Timothy. He's passing a baton on to Timothy, the next generation of leadership that will be going forth. And he's speaking truth about his journey. It's an ultimate picture of sacrifice. So some of these things I'm going to share, some of you have heard before if you've been with us in the journey, but they're a compass for me. In my early 20s, I had a wrestling match as I put my faith in Christ. What does it mean to be a Christian? I was so confused when I looked at people who called themselves Christians. What does it mean to be a Christian? I'm not sure I want to be one in light of some of the Christians that I was coming to meet. And I was away on a retreat experience, and I had a moment with a dear friend of mine, Brian Doughton. Some of you may know Brian. And I left that day. It was a retreat, and we were just battling through this. He was so patient with me because I was in turmoil in my soul. And I left, and I journaled these words, that to be a Christ follower means sacrifice and inconvenience, but with great joy. My wrestling match is that I'm the product of the American dream. And the American dream is for a better life. It's for a life of comfort and convenience. It becomes the driving force to us in life, but it's not the biblical dream. Sacrifice and inconvenience come with following Jesus Christ. It's called the cost of discipleship. But the joy is far greater than any sacrifice or inconvenience when you consider who Jesus Christ is and how he offered himself to us, how he finished well, to the end that we could come alongside and finish well in the journey too. That's a picture we have. I like this picture. He's leaving this beautiful work into the hands of young Timothy. And he says, I fought the good fight. It's a fight, but I like the adjective. It's a good fight. There's no bitterness. There's no resentment. There's no regret. It's a good fight. It's the best fight. I have fought the fight as hard as it's been. So many people get started, and so many run for a while, and so many have great dreams, but so few finish well. I want to finish well. Do you want to finish well? And so I'm starting to put this together. What does it mean to finish well? I think there are so many vital parts to leadership endurance. The list is so long, we don't have the time, obviously, but I want to share 4 non-negotiable things that we need to finish well. I'm telling you, these are embryonic. I'm still pounding these out. You're my first hearing on this whole deal, but I want a compass to be able to finish well in this season of my life. I think you need 4 things. Beauty. You need a bucket, a baton, and a beacon. And I figured that would at least capture your interest. What does that all mean? First, we need beauty to finish well, and particularly the beauty of Jesus the Christ. To finish well, we must seek intimacy with Jesus to the very end. That growing deeper in love with Jesus reveals his beauty, and that beauty is a secret to finishing well. You think about the compelling nature of beauty and what it does to us. That beauty calms us. I walk in nature and it reduces stress and it releases endorphins because of beauty that God has given us in his creation. A beautiful song opens up a worship experience, and honestly, my soul goes to a whole different dimension. A beautiful story gets told, and something in my spirit says, I want to go a little bit further. Beauty inspires us. It creates joy. It deepens intimacy. Beauty draws us close. I think about that most because the closest person in my life has been Carrie, most of our journey together now. And many of you know how we met. We were both students at Bethel, me a year older than she was, but we were on the Welcome Week staff at Bethel. And I don't know, 40, 50 students that were there. And it's our first day of meeting each other. And there's a hat in the middle of the room, and all of our names are there. And we pull out the names, and the person that you pull out is the person whom you will pray with and for during Welcome Week. And I said to the guy next to me, who is Carrie Hallstrom? And he pointed to this gorgeous blonde. And I said, I can pray with her. And we did, and we have. And we became very good friends. And eventually we would choose to get married and have a journey with 4 children together. And we've learned so much about each other through these days. But it was her beauty drew me to want to be with her. I was drawn. And now I'm intent, going through different seasons, to keep falling in love with her in new ways, in new days, and new seasons. It's an intentional choice that I make. And I think it's the same with Jesus. That when I put my faith in Jesus Christ, something happened in here, and I was drawn to the beauty of Jesus in a way that I had never understood before. And I wanted to grow in the knowledge of Christ. I'm intent today in falling in love with Jesus as I was when I first came to faith, but I choose to do that. It's part of discovering his beauty, and beauty motivates me to want to live life to the fullest and to finish life with him at the helm and leading us in the journey. We draw life from him when we're consumed with the beauty of who he is. And we see his beauty by listening to his voice. And he speaks to us in so many colorful ways. I wish I could speak to all of them. At Christmas time, my favorite gift this year that I got this is just incredible. These are bone-conducting headphones. So many of you know I shared my health deal from a year ago, so I'm swimming a lot. Can I tell you, swimming is really boring. It's very boring. And I'm following the example of Mr. Rogers because I saw the movie, and if you saw the movie, he prays with each lap. I pray for our church. I pray for our family. Every stroke, there's a prayer. But then I got to mix it up a little bit, and the kids gave me this incredible, it's bone-conducting headphones. It doesn't go in your ear. It sits here on the bone of your skull. And the sound is transmitted through your bones, not into your ears. They're awareness buds. So I've got Earth, Wind, and Fire on here. I've got podcasts on here. I've got books that I can have on here so that when I'm swimming, I can listen to different voices. And I think about that concerning who God is, that we have this God who speaks to us in different ways. The question is not, is God speaking to us? The question is, are we listening to him? And we listen in different ways. We hear God's voice through many different sources. As Carrie and I, even in relationship, when Carrie and I, we've been married 38 years. I mean, that's a long time. 38 years is a long time. And I know today her nonverbals and her verbals. Very little has to be said. When we first met, I did not know her verbals or nonverbals. And a lot more was said. It's a high learning curve when you get married. But over time, you start to learn all of those things. God has verbals and nonverbals as well. And I know, really, without anything even being said, I know Carrie's voice. And it takes time in relationship, even when nothing gets said. And that's what God wants. He wants us to know his heart and his mind, his presence and his beauty. And it takes time and relationship to have that. We hear his voice through his word. Just want to elevate that again. We drift away from reading and studying and meditating on God's word. So I just give that as an encouragement because it's where we get fed. It's where we discover his beauty that compels us to want to be in life and to finish life. You've heard me say this many times through the years because I believe it. I can't make you live in intimacy with Jesus Christ or vital union with Jesus Christ, and you can't make me live in it. I wish I could do it for my kids. Don't you wish you could just make your kids live in that vital place? You can't. You can only take care of yourself and be an example of Christ living in you to those that are around you. But I've got to wake up every day just like you do and choose to open up the Word of God and say, there's something in it for me. Whether I feel like opening it or not becomes a secondary issue. I just choose to do it because I want to finish well. And I know what happens. If I go a day and miss a day, it's amazing how the second day becomes less important for me to do the same. And 2 days becomes 3 days. And 2 weeks becomes 3 weeks. And 2 months becomes 3 months. I will tell you, every single week I'm in conversation with people who say, I've drifted away from the Lord. I've been away from him a long time. I'm just coming back now. And they're getting into God's word again. There are many people who are once in God's word and drift away. And we're at risk of not finishing well and of missing the beauty of Jesus, the most beautiful Savior, as the hymn tells us, that we could ever know. He sets the appetite for it all in our journey. So I encourage you to be in the Word as I've taught through the years, just 20 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day. You can get through the Bible in a year. It's amazing. 20 minutes a day. It doesn't seem like so much when you think about all the things you put in your day. Just open up the Word. It makes all a difference. And then we hear his voice on bended knee, obviously through prayer. So there's a prayer that God gave to me in 1999 because I was having some struggles in my prayer life. And you've heard this, take the hand off the steering wheel of your life, but I'm a guy, I wake up with a steering wheel, and you can't control how you wake up. If you wake up with a steering wheel, it's how you wake up. So how do you release your hand from the steering wheel? And I really wanted to wake up with God, but I keep waking up with a steering wheel. I'm a driven kind of guy. Can you tell that just a little bit? I'm driven, but I pray that I'm driven by the presence and the power of God and the purpose of God for life and for journey and family and in mission for the church, etc. And God gave me this prayer, and it's still my go-to prayer. I would pray it, Lord, as I go to bed tonight, I say, God, let me wake up with you. I have to ask him. And so then when I would wake up, I'd get on bended knee and I'd pray this simple prayer, Lord, let me be who you want me to be. Let me do what you want me to do. Let me go where you want me to go. Let me say what you want me to say. That simple prayer, I start my day that way, and I'm not telling you I never wake up with a steering wheel any longer. I certainly do. But when I can get on bended knee, there's a release at the beginning of the day where I can die to self and say, God, I want to go where you are. Lead me there in the journey. So prayer keeps us going in the journey to finish well. I listen to his voice through godly friends, through circumstances, through God promptings. I can't speak to all of those, but we need to hear his voice. And to hear his voice is to see beauty, and to see beauty is to have the fuel to cross the finishing line at some point. Secondly, to finish well, you need a bucket. And now, I know when some of you think of a bucket, you're thinking of all kinds of different things, and many of you are thinking of this particular image of a bucket. As soon as I said, you have to have a bucket, I said, I know where people are going to go with this. You're on a beach somewhere, and you got the commercial in your head. It doesn't get any better than this, and they're cracking open a beer. And I'm going to tell you, it just gets a whole lot better than this. This is not the bucket. You're not going to finish well with this bucket, can I tell you? The bucket I'm speaking about is the bucket of mercy. To finish well, you need to daily dip and sometimes soak in God's mercy to the very end. Lamentations 3:23 says, his mercies are new every day. Great is his faithfulness. Why are his mercies new every day? Because we need them every day. That's why. And so he makes his mercies available to us, and we can praise God that he does. Every day he does this for us. I'm grateful this is part of the journey. We need mercy when life is hard. When some external experience or internal crisis or intense pressure or challenge forces us into a place where we feel like there's no place to go but to God. And, we'll go to a lot of places before we go to God sometimes. But then there's times where our desperation says, there's only one place to go. It is to God. I need to go there. And in those places, we feel so fragile. We feel so vulnerable and so weak. And we're tempted to throw in the towel and to finish the race. But when we say, oh, Lord, have mercy on me, God meets us. I called Teresa Vandergalen this week just to give permission to share her story again, because some of you know Glenn and Teresa. Glenn and Teresa were with us at the beginning, started this church. Glenn was an amazing workforce for kids ministry here. The culture of our kids ministry really got fueled by Glenn, who said men should be working with kids, not just women. And he mobilized men of Westwood to be part of the journey. And that culture shift by his leadership has made a profound impact on our whole kids ministry. Still, primary growth and engine of the church is clearly our kids ministry. It's phenomenal. And unfortunately, at 51 years of age, he died of a massive heart attack in 2012. It was their 28th wedding anniversary. He died on their 28th wedding anniversary. Now that's sorrow. That's suffering. 4 teenage kids that they're raising. And we did that service in here. This place was packed. And because it was packed, and everybody had so much to say, and I was the last person to speak, the service was already 2 hours long. I mean, people just went on. So I go, well, I forget what I was going to say in terms of a sermon or meditation. And I just came up, and this was not here. I stood on these stairs, and Teresa was right here. And I looked into Teresa's eyes, and I relived that moment because I know the power of it. And I said, Teresa, your life got rocked. And I said, we're told that his mercies are new every day. Great is his faithfulness. So Teresa and the kids are there. I said, tomorrow morning when you wake up, I want you to visualize a bucket by your bed, a bucket of mercy. And you roll over into that bucket of mercy and let God, whose grace is sufficient for your every need, meet you and guide you. Don't borrow from today's bucket of mercy for tomorrow's troubles. You think about how you wake up in the course of the day and the energy that you need in the course of the day. And you can cruise through God's mercy because it's like he's looking for you to trust him. He's got sufficient mercy for you, but sometimes we just burn through his mercy by 3 p.m, and then we're left with nothing. And we need to come to him and re-immerse ourselves in the bucket of mercy that he gives us every day. Isn't that a beautiful promise? To finish well, we need mercy every day, friends. every single day. And sometimes it's a dip in, and sometimes we just need to soak in. And Teresa it's been a hard journey, as you can imagine, for her. But she uses this metaphor all the time, and it speaks to me as well. The reality is a bucket of mercy is needed when life is hard, but we need mercy when temptations come as well. When temptations pull you away from God and put you at risk, we have to guard our hearts from sin. And that's why Proverbs 4:23 says, guard your heart with all diligence, for from it flows the wellspring of life. Your ability to finish comes by guarding your heart. And the Hebrew word for guard is a military term, and it literally means put soldiers around your heart because you're going to need them. You're going to need them. So we guard ourselves from sin that creates a gravitational pull away from rather than to God and keeps us from finishing with him. We guard our hearts. Sin knocks. We say things and we do things we ought to say or do. Oh, Lord, have mercy on me for my sin. Some of you today, you've got some unfinished business. That you've done something or said something that you know and has been sitting with you. I need to deal with that, with the Lord and with the person. I'm just going to encourage you to do that. Put it in motion today because it becomes a gateway to finishing well. And if you don't, it'll have a cumulative effect of wall building instead. I encourage you to do that. Jesus doesn't want our strength. He wants to give us his. That's such an important part of it. We don't have the strength to resist sin, but he does in us. We go there. I've got to keep going. The baton. It's a baton of hope. To finish well, you have to have a developmental mindset to the end, all the way to the end. And that's simply saying that you are being developed and transformed and you are developing others. That's part of finishing well. That the Spirit in us is shaping us and developing us all of the time. We heard a lot of that today. I used this baton picture because I ran track in high school. I ran the 880 relay, each of us running a 220 on the deal. And it's an intensely fast, focused kind of race. But the relay is not about one person. It's about a team. It's a team of runners. That you are both a baton receiver and a baton giver. And you have to learn the art of both and. And that's how you run the race. And I think spiritually, that's the picture. You personally think about the people who've passed the baton of influence in your life. And I have them. Mrs. Graves, my 5th grade teacher, when my parents were divorced, I've told that story. The power of a great teacher would change my life. James Connor, who was my lit teacher at 14 years of age, whom we named our son, his middle name, after James Connor. That's the kind of influence. Leith Anderson, who introduced me to church when a call to ministry came, and I didn't grow up in the church, not in the way that churches are like Westwood is. I didn't know how to behave in the church. I didn't know the language of the church, and he was so patient with me and mentored me. And by the way, on February 23rd, he's going to be in our services as part of our 25th anniversary speaking. Would you mark that on your calendar and bring your friends? You're going to be blessed by this great mentor in my life. He mentored me. No, we're called to practice the disciplines, to know your spiritual gifts, to have the fruit of the Spirit, to know your influence and own your influence. You've been given an assignment. But then it's collectively, too. We give the baton to others. We mentor other people. We're a team. You don't go it alone. You work together to make the team the best you can. So we've heard so much of that this morning. I won't even unpack it any further, except our phrase that we are better together when we're... That was close to being strong. We're better together when we're in it together. We're not better together just because we're together. We're better together when we're in it together. To finish well is to pass the baton and to think about who's your next in your journey. And then the beacon of light. To finish well, you share the goodness of Christ and the gospel of Christ to the end. Now, if we really want to finish well, we don't keep the blessings of our faith to ourselves. We give it away as well. Matthew 4:16, you are the light of the world. Just listen to this. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Let them see that you are the light of Jesus Christ. That's our call to the end of our journey. So if we're not being light, if we're not a beacon of light of Jesus, the chances of us finishing well aren't so great. I saw Tim Linker's here. Tim, I saw your eyes over there. I didn't know you were going to be here. Sorry, bud. Tim was one of my closest friends, probably best friend in high school. We played basketball together in high school. And I had come to faith when I was 18, and I wanted to tell Tim that I'd come to faith in Jesus Christ. So we went on a 3-day, 4-day trip over to Lake Okoboji in Iowa to kind of finish and go off to college and have a grand time. And I wanted to tell him what had happened to me. And we had 4 days for me to tell him. I could not find the courage to tell him. I was so concerned what he would think about me. I take my first Bible class from Walt Wessel from Romans 1:16. I am not ashamed of the gospel because it is the power of God for the salvation of all who believe. And I was ashamed. And Tim, the fact that Jesus met you and brought you here, now he's at Bush Lake with Mary and serving, that's the grace of God. And if I would have kept that behavior up, I would not have finished well. And I apologize I wasn't there, but I'm grateful God filled in the gap with others in the journey. But we need each other to be the light of Christ. And our whole mission and vision, which is my brief touchstone, is, here, near, far. That's the vision. And the strategy is a love strategy of 10-10-10. And we're 2 years into the journey. It's bold. It's vulnerable. It requires trust. It requires all of our engagement in the journey. And I won't unpack all of what that means for us, but I just tell you there's good movement happening right now. We've got a grassroots movement happening in Mound right now, about 75 people who want us to be there. Well, we haven't planned to be in Mound, so they've got us on our heels a little bit right now. How many of you from Mound area? Any of you? Yeah? Okay. Well, I thought you'd shout and scream. Yeah, you've gotten our attention for sure. We're praying about what that looks like. And of course, we just unfolded our new campus online, which has been terrific. The immigrant deal with Chris. You are part of a mission of God with Allianz Field and the cathedral of the families of the earth, because God's heart is for the families of the earth. And to think the nations are here and they're going to be gathered there. In fact, they're going to be gathered there for an evangelistic event by Sammy Wagnoni in September, a gospel sharing, church planting endeavor. We get to be part of that. And then the 10 by 10 by 10 is the 1,000 churches in the far reaches of the world. And I just learned last week that we passed 400 already. We're in year 2. This is amazing what God is doing. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up here. I read a leadership book recently and had a really interesting story, and it was a story of a young English pianist who was giving his inaugural concert at the London Hall to a packed audience, and the music was brilliant. And he received a standing ovation, a long-standing ovation. He was young. He was not used to that kind of attention, a bit shy. He slithered back behind the stage curtains and didn't want to be there any further. And the manager came out and said, "They're standing. You need to come out and give a bow and give an encore." And he refused to do it. He says, "Can you hear that? They're all standing and they're clapping for you. You need to go out." And he says, "They're not all standing. There's a guy sitting up in the balcony." The manager went and looked, and sure enough, there was a guy sitting there. And he goes, "Okay, what are you worried about? Everybody else but that guy is standing. Come out and give an encore." And he said, "That's my teacher." And it means something, when you think about our journey, whether you're young and stepping into your life and all that's ahead, whether you're older and maybe closing on the sunset part of your journey, we all, throughout the whole journey, need appreciation and encouragement for people to run the race, to finish well. And each of us has somebody whose praise and appreciation and encouragement means more to us than the combination of everybody else. There's certain people you just want to know that you have their approval or disapproval concerning your leadership and how you enter into it. And that's the way it was for another young guy as well, told in the Bible. You know him as Stephen, who was an emerging leader in the New Jerusalem church. And he had a call on his life, a purpose, an assignment, and for him, a difficult assignment. And it was to present Jesus Christ to the religious leaders of Jerusalem. Not exactly a friendly audience. And he delivered a speech, which, by the way, the speech is brilliant. You can read it in Acts chapter 7. It's absolutely brilliant. But not everybody feels that way. Sometimes people want to rip up speeches. That is not a new scenario. Can I just say that? All right? That's not a judgment either way. I'm just saying that the desire to rip up a speech is not new. These religious leaders weren't interested in ripping up the speech. They were interested in stoning Stephen to death. And that's what they did. In the middle of his speech, they took stones and they began to throw, and it began to hit him. And as those stones were hitting him, the Bible says, Stephen, full of the Spirit, looked. And as he looked, something happened. He saw the glory of God, and he saw Jesus Christ standing by his right hand. And he had enough strength to say to the religious leaders, look, heaven is opening, and the Son of Man is standing by the right hand of God. And it's such an extraordinary little verse because when you read the whole narrative in the scriptures concerning Jesus by God, he's always seated at the right hand of God. But here we find Jesus who stood for Stephen. And Stephen, who took his assignment and he owned his influence and he finished well. And I think about our journey at Westwood, and this is my wish for me and for you, that you would finish well. May you be the kind of leaders for whom Jesus would stand and say to you that you could hear the words, well done, good and faithful servant. No, if we want to finish, you need beauty. You need a bucket. You need a baton. And you need to be a beacon of light, because that light has transformed us. I love you all. God's blessing.
All right, you made it. But we're not going to rush out of here. I think our natural tendency whenever we experience a full day like this is to get out of here as quick as we can and get on to the next thing, and our lives are busy. That phone has vibrated a couple times while it's on your table. You got something to take care of, but I want to give us a few minutes. I want to give us a few minutes to reflect, to think about, to process all that God has given us this morning. So we're going to take 2 minutes for you silently at your table to reflect, to spend time with God, to evaluate what he's speaking to you and how you want to apply it to your life. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes, and then I'm going to come back up and close.
What if my heart
Will you join me in prayer? Dear Heavenly Father, we ask with humility that you would help us to be who you're calling us to be. God, help us to do what you're calling us to do. God, help us to say what you're calling us to say. God, we need you to be the leaders you're calling us to be. So give us all that we need, all the strength, all the mercy, all the hope. We love you, Jesus. Amen. Friends, as you go from this place, know that you are loved and cared for, and we are so grateful that we got to grow as leaders today. Have a great week.
In the shadowlands, pour the tears of light through the silent earth. Speak the words of life. I'm reaching out for a love to trust. Spirit, breathe again, beauty from the dust. My spirit awakens in collision with grace. Jesus, I hear you call. I come caught in this embrace. I run to the open with nothing to hide. Jesus, taking hold. This love is taking hold of mine. In the dust of death, resurrection stirs. Through my blood runs yours, rivers of rebirth. Oh, rivers of rebirth. My spirit awakens in collision with grace. Jesus, I hear you call. I come caught in this embrace. I run to the open with nothing to hide. Jesus, I'm taking hold. This love is taking hold of mine. Your love is taking hold of mine. Your love is taking hold of mine. You're all I want. Take this heart of mine.